The question for today is, how close are we to one world government? Now, you know that the Bible specifically prophesies a world governmental system. But looking around where we are right now, it appears that we're quite a ways from really moving into one world government. Now, remember that David Rockefeller back in 1994 stated that all it would take would be the right crisis and the nations of the world would agree to move into the new world order. And he specifically was speaking about one world government. So this is not a new concept. I'm talking about 16 years ago. David Rockefeller was dreaming of someday having a one world governmental system. Now it goes much further back than that. Nevertheless, they have been working very diligently, especially since the fall of the Berlin Wall, toward this dreamed of one world government. Now, these political leaders are not doing it because it's prophesied in the Bible, because the Bible prophesies that when this one world government is achieved, it's going to turn out bad. It's going to have horrible consequences for all of us that are here on earth. So what is motivating these world leaders? And I'm talking about across a very broad cross-section of world leaders, whether it be political, economic, religious. I know the present Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, has spoken out repeatedly in favor of a one world governmental system. So you've got economic leaders, you have political leaders speaking about global governance. I know George W. Bush, he talked about globalization all the time, that it was inevitable, that everyone had to fall in line. So religious leaders, political leaders, economic leaders, they're all preaching the same tune, and yet it seems ever so evasive. I'm looking at an article right now. It's entitled G20, Sovereignty versus Global Governance. Now notice they use the term global governance because they know everyone's afraid of world government. But global governance is world government. Please do not let anyone play you for the fool. The term global governance is world government. Global's world, governance is government. Look it up in your dictionary. Look up governance, and it will tell you it means government. So this article, the G20 just met last week in Seoul, South Korea, and they were discussing sovereignty versus global governance. The article starts like this. This comes from Al Arabiya News. Global governance once again crashed into the Great Wall of national sovereignty at the G20 summit in Seoul last week. Now notice the frustration in the sound of this article. Global governance crashed into the Great Wall of national sovereignty. As bad as we want global governance, the writer is saying, yet we always seem to hit that wall called national sovereignty. Well, do you remember back, Mr. Walter Cronkite was the voice of the news for 30 years here in the United States of America. Shortly after leaving his job as news anchor, he was awarded the Norman Cousins Award for global governance. Now, this award is given by the World Federalist Association, which is totally dedicated to one world government. They're open about it. They're blatant about it. And so they gave Walter Cronkite the Global Governance Award. And it's so amusing because when he accepted the award, I have the the video clip, he said, the Global Government Award. And then he realized he said the wrong thing. And he stopped and struggled and said, the Global Governance Award. He said, I'll get that right because I'll be saying that many times. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what he said. It's all the same thing. Well, when accepting this award, Mr. Walter Cronkite, who was maybe the most respected voice in the news for 30 years, said, the time has come, we have to acknowledge that it's the nation state that continually embroils mankind in war. That the time has now come for nations to give up, and he softened what he said by saying, some of their sovereignty. He said it's going to be a bitter pill, but nations are going to have to surrender some of their sovereignty. And then he commented on the establishment of the International Criminal Court. He was congratulating the World Federalist Association, which actually led the fight for the establishment of the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, in case you missed it, is a world court system, the first world court system that has the ability to summons individuals like you, like me, individuals before its bench and to prosecute them there. They're already doing it right now. Well, a lot of people object to an international court, a world court, that can reach down and grab U.S. citizens or Egyptian citizens or Israeli citizens, anyone that violates its statutes, and place them on trial. Now, make no mistake about this. If you would be placed on trial before the International Criminal Court, and that is a possibility, they claim jurisdiction over you, they claim global jurisdiction. But if you were placed on trial there, you would not have the protections of the U.S. Constitution, nor the Bill of Rights, but it is a belief of the people who are pushing for one world government. We already have structures of international finance, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank. We already have many powerful instruments of international finance, and most recently, we set up the Global Stabilization Board, which is supposed to oversee all the major financial institutions of the world and make sure that they are conforming to the edicts of the international economic system. Well, beyond that, there are global governance structures being set up, the International Criminal Court being one of those. And Mr. Cronkite, in commenting on all this, emphasized repeatedly, we are going to have a system of world government, enforceable world government. These were the very words that he used, but he said it's not going to be easy for nations to give up their sovereignty. Well, that's what's being said in this article today. Global governance, once again, crashed into the Great Wall of national sovereignty at the G20 summit in Seoul last week. But remember, David Rockefeller, one of the most powerful people on the face of this earth, very powerful economically. Mr. David Rockefeller said, all we need is the right crisis, and the nations of the world will accept the New World Order. Well, apparently, this most recent crisis was not bad enough. So my question to you today is, what crisis will it take in order for us to actually be willing to accept the New World Order? In your mind right now, what could happen on this planet that would persuade the nations of the world, the leaders of the nations of the world, that it's time to say, all right, we all have to submit ourselves to a vast international authority? In other words, the global system envisioned is that it would be a crime to commit aggression. Now, aggression would be defined as any military action not previously approved by the United Nations. So, for instance, George Bush went against Saddam Hussein in Iraq. He could not get United Nations approval for that action, so he just did it anyway. Many people think that that was a war crime. Now, before you write that off as unimportant, even the Secretary General at the time of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan, said when he was pressed by a journalist, do you believe that the Iraq War was an illegal war? And Mr. Kofi Annan attempted to avoid answering the question, but the journalist persisted, and finally Mr. Kofi Annan said, yes, I do believe that that was an illegal war. Now, there are people that really believe that George Bush should be placed on trial. And frankly, it's not totally out of the woods right now, because concerning torture, it still has not been decided by the Obama administration for certain that there will not be some trials held of those responsible for torture. Well, let's face it, George W. Bush not only approved that torture, the waterboarding, but he has since defended it and said he would do it again. Okay, so let's look at what the world government will look like when it comes. It will be a world government that can actually bring kings and presidents before its bar and try them for violating the edicts of the international law of the world governmental system. Now, you might say that's so far out. No, it's not. In March of 2009, they issued a warrant for the arrest of Mr. al-Bashir, the president of Sudan. He is a sitting president this very day, and yet the world court sees itself as being above the government of Sudan and able to issue a warrant for his arrest. They put Slobodan Milosevic on trial, a former head of state. So this is fully where they intend to go. They want a world governmental system under UN authority, under the Security Council of the UN. That's what they want. And guess what? That's what they're going to get. There is a one world government coming. So we should not act as though it can't come. Now, when we see this article, sovereignty versus global governance, I mean, who's thinking about this? Apparently everyone is, because it says global governance once again crashed into the Great Wall of national sovereignty. And then it goes on to say, despite repeated references to strong collective commitments to international cooperation, sustainable development, and macroeconomic coordination, the G20 countries jointly agreed to go their own ways and avoid collective action as much as is possible. We are going to be receiving your calls today on the program. We're up against a break right now, but as soon as we get back, we are now going to go to the telephone. So if you want to be on the air with us, 877-END, time is the number to call, 877-363-8463.
Every Monday at 9 p.m. Central on the Church Channel and at 10 p.m. Central on Daystar, Irvin Baxter presents End of the Age. End of the Age is a 30-minute program which gives intricate details about how Bible prophecy is not only true, but also how it lines up so perfectly with events going on in the world right now. Don't miss one End of the Age program every Monday at 9 p.m. Central on the Church Channel and at 10 p.m. Central on Daystar. Visit endtime.com for more details or call 1-800-ENDTIME.
I felt a call at an early age to win the lost, to do God's will in my life.
I feel like nowadays we have more religion than we do relationship.
A lot of young people today think that they just have done something so bad that they can't be forgiven, or they've done something that's just beyond repair.
Weed wasn't enough, pills weren't enough, alcohol wasn't enough.
You know what? I would say that it's not really about the movies or the popularity or the things that are going on at your high school. It's about Jesus Christ.
He came